Mrs. Steve and I were gifted this snow blower from one of her relatives that can't use it anymore. I have no idea if it runs. Let's do a little work on it and hope for the best. Before I try to start this, I need to fix the chute. The handle is supposed to be up here about the 1 o'clock position with the chute straight forward, and it's not. There's a cotter pin over here. Comes out. And then there's a plastic wing nut. We'll take that bolt out. There we go. There's a little arrow mark on here that goes straight up. There we go. Yep. And that puts it back in the right spot. Next nut should drop. There we go. Get the pin in. It would help if it were pointing in the correct direction. And down. There we go. I also want to adjust these skids. This is just sitting flat and they're not touching the ground. These are considered consumables. They're supposed to drag along the ground and keep the blade just the tiniest bit off so that you're not scraping the blade if you've got an uneven driveway. Or at least I want the tiniest bit, so I'm gonna put a little bit of newspaper underneath the blade just to give it a hair of clearance. And these are 13mm. Use rubber mallet to get them all the way down. Up. And when this edge wears down, you flip them over, use the other edge. When you've worn out both edges, you just buy new ones. Now we're going to start with checking the oil. To the top of the threads, the color light brown. That's good news. Now we'll check the oil using the dipstick. Got to check the spark plug next. That should help. Yeah, it's not too bad. Cleaned it up a little bit. It's an old trick to just take some sandpaper, run it between the electrodes. There we go. Yeah, let's try. Let's see if we can see what a spark test does. Hopefully I can get a good ground here. Yep, I got spark. All right, I'll put it back in by hand first to make sure you don't cross thread it. All the way down until it seats. And because I'm just reusing an old one, just 1/8 of a turn to make sure it's sealed. All right, next. And now let's check the gas can. Yep, it's been stored with gas, light brown color. So we need to drain that out. To get the rest of the gas out of the fuel system, there's a drain plug on the carb bowl, 10 millimeter. And I got the newspaper here to catch any drips. I want to take the bolt off. This one goes back in. That looks nasty. The jet's actually up inside here, and I'm not able to see it or reach to clean it. Let's put this back on. There we go. I'm gonna put just a little bit of gasoline in here. All right, let's hope I do this right. The key goes in. Prime it twice. Oh, look at that. There's a pinhole. It's leaking. There's a pinhole right there. Okay. It needs a new carburetor. And I gotta go look up the instructions on how to take this farther apart so I can replace the carburetor. $10 millimeter to open up the drain plug. And some newspaper to catch what's about to come out. Yeah, this is gonna be fun. Day 2, and the replacement carburetor has arrived. So the carburetor's back in here, and I've got to take this panel off to get to it. And from what I read online, you start by having to pull these levers so it'll slide free. Without breaking them. There we go. It's a U-shaped. The U is a frowny face going on and off. And this is the fill controller that has to come off. I'm going to try and set it about the middle and see what happens. Here we go. And that's just got a slot, so I'm trying to remember it about mid-range and should be right. Okay, these 2 acorn nuts. 10 millimeter. Looks like these might have to come out also. here. It looks like these two screws for the electric start are also trapping it. I just got these brand new JIS screwdriver bits. Ah, okay. Okay, so those two cap screws are what held everything together. You can see, this is the air box. There's no air filter. Primer hose connects over here. That's a choke control, and it operates this. All right. Take those off. Take the choke plate off, or the choke. It's the bracket that holds the choke control. And the important bit. The spring is for the governor, and that's the control arm for the governor. Okay, so we're trying carefully take that spring off. And then this clip for the fuel line, we're going to move it up off. There we go. Okay, fuel line's free. Slide this forward, and the governor arm just slides right out. And here comes the rest of the carb. Oh. The primer. The hose for the primer was still attached. 170SA. And according to Sears, which supposedly makes the Craftsman, a 170S or SA are equivalent replacements. Well, I've got it open. I can check the kill switch. Okay, so now got continuity. Without it, that's a closed circuit. And with the key in, it's an open circuit. Goes like that. Here's the primer hose. And I can either try and worm that out, or I can just leave this one in here. It seems to be in good shape. All right. Okay, so the governor just drops in. And then this spring goes in this little hole in the top. Fuel line goes in here. This is where the primer port goes. We're gonna have to remember that one. Put it back together. And then the bracket for the choke lever. Choke lever goes in there. And then feeds around to there. Oh yeah, that's so much easier than the old one. I'm not even sure the airbox needs a gasket, but this definitely is the wrong shape. This gasket's not so important, so I can reuse one of the old ones. Alright, so I'm gonna try and get this back together now. And I have to remember that that port goes here. I want to squeeze it back together. Let's get the primer back on. These have to go back in. Long one goes on the long stud. Short one goes on the short stud. I wonder if these go inside here first. That makes more sense. There was really no way to get a good camera angle of this. There's about a 1 centimeter gap where I've got my fingertips in there trying to get the crankcase vent and the primer tube back in place. And then we can put the electric start back in. That actually was easier than getting it out. Okay, then we get these 2 screws here. And then these 2 acorn nuts that clamp the air box. And the carburetor in place. The throttle control goes here. Smiley face goes down. Go. Choke valve is just a slot. Should. Keys in, choke is at the start, throttles and run. Solid drives. Plug in the starter. And brake. Oh, forgot to turn off the choke. Let's do it again. That works too, holding the key. Now, I'm a big fan of the YouTube channel Chicanic. Bree hates the Amazon Chinese-made aftermarket carburetors for her two-stroke engines, but I've got to be honest, my experience is 3 for 3 getting a carburetor off of Amazon, and it fixes the problem. This was a little more complicated than some of the others, but it was worth it. This snow thrower was free, and we've got 8 to 10 inches coming on Wednesday of this week, so I am really glad this thing is working. I think that's all I wanted to say. In that case, I'm Steve. This is the YouTube channel Workbench-Z. Go have fun with your tools. It's not the 8 to 12 inches they promised, but I think I can still see whether or not this thing works. Pulling it.